Hello, this is a video tutorial of the electronic medical record used at the Jerusalem Clinic in Haiti. This tutorial will go through all the aspects of the workflow. It will include how to register a patient, how to enter vitals, how to use the electronic medical record as a provider, and how to dispense medications in the pharmacy. When you open up the demo link, you will arrive at the screen and you'll click on Clinical Service. You'll be entered into a login screen, and make sure you hit clinic and then make sure you hit enter. This is the homepage of the electronic medical record. Through all the workflow of the clinic, we're really kind of focusing on two of these tabs. The one is registration to register patients, and all the other aspects of the workflow will be through this clinical tab. So when we begin talking about how to register a patient, I'm going to click on registration. Now there's two things that we can do here. One is if a patient has been already seen, has already been seen in the clinic, we can search them by their identification number or their name here, phone number, and address. Typically ID number or name is used. If a patient has not been seen before and is new to the clinic, we can hit create new up here. That will lead us to this screen here. Now where you see these red stars, those are the required fields to be entered. All this information here can certainly be entered, but is not required to move on to the next step. Identification numbers are generated automatically with the electronic medical record. That can be done manually by clicking this box, but it's recommended that the EMR select the next patient ID. I'm going to create a patient. I'm going to call them testing. Select a gender-free patient, and then I'll select a birth date. Okay, if the patient does not know their birth date, there's also an option to click for an estimated birth date. Once completing this information here, I'm going to hit Start OPD Visit. It takes me to the next screen. Nothing has to be done with the screen unless you'd like to enter in registration fees that are collected, but it's not necessary to enter in any information here. And then I'm going to hit Save. So now I have a new patient that's been created. Whenever finishing up an aspect at your station or in your workflow, you're going to hit back to this home button to get you back to home. So now we're going to go find that patient that we just created. I'm going to go to the clinical tab, and really the rest of the workflow is all done through this tab. We'll see the patient that I just created now. This is the patient just above here that was created earlier today. That will be able to see a couple other things when we get to the provider user preference. So I'm going to click on that patient, and we're going to pretend that patient's heading into the next station, which is where they get their vitals taken. This is the dashboard that each patient will display when we click on them. Now, this is a new patient, so we don't have any information that's here. We'll see that other example information that's been pre-entered for a previous visit and how that may look for a provider. From this screen, the only button to kind of click on or worry about to open up that patient chart is this consultation button. So we hit the consultation. We'll get a little more in depth on the screen when we get into the provider user functionality, but really we're just going to focus on vitals now. That is the first template that shows up here. There are multiple templates that are displayed here, but we're just going to enter in vitals. So I'm just going to make up some vitals for this patient. Not all of these vitals need to be entered. So for example, if I don't want to do a pulse oximeter on this patient, I don't have to be able to enter information. And I'm going to enter in a height as well. Okay. Before ever leaving a patient's chart, this save button must be clicked in order for that information to be saved into that patient's chart. Okay. So after your patient has been registered and their vitals are taken, you can go right back to this kind of button here where all these people are. That sends you back to this clinical tab, and then you can select the next patient that needs to get their vitals taken. To get back to the home screen, I would just click this home button. So if I'm registering patients, just to kind of back up a little bit, I'm going to keep on going through this registration tab to enter them in. And always clicking back on this home screen and then going back to this. To enter in vitals, I'm always going to be going to this clinical tab, finding the patient that's just been registered, entering in their vitals, and then going back to this screen here to find the next patient who's sitting in front of me who's waiting to get their vitals. Now, as the provider, after the patient has been registered and their vitals have been taken, they'll come see a provider. We'll again click on this clinical tab. We'll find that patient who's just been vital. So let's select the patient that we just created. So testing shows up and is here to be seen. I'll be able to see off the dashboard with that new information that's in place what their vitals are. Under nutritional values, this is where you'll see their height and their weight. I'm again going to go back to consultation. We can see that we're at the same screen that we were when we entered in the vitals, but we're going to be using some of these other templates that are here. Most of the documentation as a provider will be in this template here, history and examination. So the patient will start to talk about their complaints or their problems. There are multiple autocomplete problems that have been entered into an electronic medical record. If that problem is found, that label should be used for data collection. So let's say the patient complains about a headache. So I'm going to enter in head, and I see that that's one of the options. So I'm going to click on that. If the patient has multiple complaints, I can enter that. I can enter this plus button, so then they can tell me about the other complaint. Let's say that they have a rash. And I'm going to select this one here. Under history notes, this is where subjective information taken from the patient can be entered. So for example, I may say the headache present for 5 days. Okay, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of where in a history of present illness would be taken. Allergies may be entered here. There's smoking history, examination notes, and assessment and plan. We'll get into a little bit about diagnoses and medications in some of the other tabs. Assessment and plan is where you're going to want to write down information that's going to be communicated so it's clear for the next provider that sees a patient that may be 3 months or later what was done with that patient. Certainly medications will be seen, but if any kind of specific instructions were given or documentation on your assessment to support a diagnosis, that should be entered in here. A very cool functionality is entering in images into your HPI. So that can be done with this button here. Any image file is supported on this. So certainly with first the permission of the patient, we may take pictures that may support our examination if we want that documented in here. The easiest way to do that is to take a picture using either the Chromebook or a cell phone or a tablet, and then saving it to the desktop, and then clicking on this, and then you may select where that photo is. Okay. To display some of the other tabs, there is a second vitals tab. Now, let's say that patient comes to me very hypertensive, and I want to recheck that blood pressure. Instead of changing the blood pressure in here, it would be ideal to record a second set of vital signs. So if I want to recheck that systolic and diastolic, I'll enter in those values there when I recheck them. Point of care testing can be seen on this tab laboratory. So I'm going to click on laboratory, and let's say I wanted to, for example, send a patient for a urine pregnancy test. I can enter in those there. Most of these are dichotomous, meaning they're either positive or negative. But if, for example, I do want to write things out, for example, in urinalysis, I may write nitrates negative, ketones negative, whatever information is you want to have in that chart. Okay. There are some other tabs here. I think the ones that are mainly used are really the vitals, history exam, second vitals, and then the laboratory. The cardiovascular studies and vaginal discharge studies and echo study are ones that are used with studies that Russia is doing. Vaccination history may be entered if that patient does present with their vaccine records. And then a community survey is a little something else that's not really used in the standard workflow. Now the provider will be using all these 4 tabs here. So remember under vitals I mentioned to hit save. You may save at any point in time. Really these tabs, you may go between these tabs without losing that information. But if I wanted to hit save, for example, I can certainly do that and then continue with my workflow. So it's saved now, and that might be not a bad idea to do, just so no information is lost. Under this next tab, orders, you will see all of these lab tests that we saw in the previous observation tab, where we enter in the point of care testing. This tab is really here not to enter in results. Those results again are entered into this laboratory template. These orders are really just for inventory. So if for example, with the previous patient, we did a UA as well as a urine pregnancy test, I'm going to click on both of those. Nothing else needs to be done here. You don't need to enter in a comment with that result there. It actually won't show up in the dashboard. What will show up in the dashboard are these findings here. But this is really for inventory, so that when we look at data analytics, what tests were ordered and how many. We're going to go next to the diagnosis tab. Okay. Now, just like the problem list in the HPI section, there are hundreds, actually thousands of different ICD-10 diagnoses. Now, we've simplified a lot of them. So, for example, let's say with this patient we saw, we have headache. So I'm going to enter in head, and I see the headache is there. So this is a great example of that assessment and plan. So under assessment, I might say that this was a tension type headache, or this was a cluster headache or migraine headache. Those diagnoses are not here under that label, but can be certainly clarified in that assessment and plan section. We can continue to add diagnoses. Let's say that rash was tinea corporis. So I'm going to add that in there. Now you've noticed that I hit primary and confirmed. Really just kind of click those 2 sections there to kind of continue. If I want to enter in, for example, when we did a test for diabetes, but I just for showing that. Now ICD-10 has multiple different diagnoses for diabetes. Really, if a patient has a diagnosis of diabetes, we're using this unspecified diabetes mellitus. Okay. Now you may hit save if you like, or you can continue to the next tab. When we finish, this is the last tab that we're using. You're going to hit save before leaving the chart. If I were to click this button right here, that information that I generated would not be saved unless I hit this button first before leaving the patient's chart. Okay, so let's enter in some medicines. So the medicines that are on the formulary are pre-entered in here. So let's say I want to, for the patient's headache, I want to give him acetaminophen. So we'll give him acetaminophen 500 milligrams. You'll see these options here. So I want to give 1 tablet. You may choose your different unit here. We're going to give him acetaminophen comes in a tablet for this patient. Frequency, I want to say that he can take it every 6 hours. And you can select how many days you want the patient to take for. This is typically more so for medicines that are taken on a routine basis. This is a medication that's taken on an as-needed basis. So I'm just going to give the patient 30 tablets. I'm going to say that he can take it as needed, and I'm going to add that medication. Oops, I'm going to enter in something under duration. So we'll say for 30 days. But the total quantity can be entered in here. Now I'm going to show you kind of a little bit different use of that duration tab that's going to enter into quantity. Let's say we diagnose this patient with diabetes, and let's say I want to start the patient on metformin. So I'd like this patient to take 500 milligrams twice a day. So I'm going to say 1 tablet every 12 hours. Okay. We're going to request that the patient comes back in 90 days for 3 months. So I'm just going to hit 90. And you'll see that it automatically calculates that the patient should be dispensed 180 tabs. So then I'm just going to hit add. The same can be done for example, blood pressure medicines. Let's say I want them on amlodipine. They can just take a tablet every day. And I want them to take it for 90 days. It'll calculate total quantity 90. And now you may add additional instructions here. So I may say, for example, take with food. That may be a cue for the pharmacy. So when the person in the pharmacy is dispensing medications, they can look at the instructions and provide that teaching or reinforce that teaching when they dispense the medicine. Okay, so I'm going to hit add there. Now, as the provider, I've finished seeing this patient, so I'm going to hit save. Now all my documentation under observations, orders, diagnoses, and medications have been saved. And now I'm going to go back to the beginning and find the next patient that's now sitting in front of me. For the pharmacy, we're going to go through this clinical tab, and it's going to send us back to the page that we were just at. There are these tabs up here, drug orders and drug suspense. Drug orders is your inbox. So if the patient that the provider just saw testing is now at the pharmacy and states that he needs to pick up medicines from us. So I'm going to click on that patient, and it's actually going to send us to the last screen or the last interface that the provider saw. This button here, D, stands for dispense. So that communicates in the patient chart that that medicine has been dispensed to him or her. I may decide to hit just this, get all the medications together, double check that I have all of them, hand the patient, and then hit dispense all, or I may do this one at a time, whatever your preference may be. I'm just going to hit dispense all, just like the provider has to do. Make sure you hit save. And now when we go back to that screen, we're back working in pharmacy. I can see that drugs have, I have one drug order. This is for a patient that I did earlier, and drugs have been dispensed for this patient. This will especially come in handy when there may be confusion of whether a patient received medicines or did not get medicines dispensed to them. We'll see if they appear in the inbox or if they appear in drugs dispensed. They'll appear in one or the other. So this is your to-do pile, and this is really your done pile for the pharmacy. So that's the complete workflow for registration, vitaling patients, seeing the patient as a provider, and dispensing medications in the pharmacy. Now I'm just going to open up that patient that I had created earlier, just to show a little bit more about how the dashboard might look for patients who've been seen in the past. So this is especially important for providers. These were vitals that were taken earlier. This is how an HPI may look. So if I'm seeing that patient 3 months after they were seen, I can see what was done in the previous HPI. These were the problems that they reported. Here was the history that was taken by the previous provider. Here was that assessment and plan. Diagnoses may be seen up here. So especially for those patients who have chronic diseases, I may see like this patient has hypertension, was prescribed amlodipine or Norvasc 5 milligrams. When I'm looking at their blood pressure and asking them if they took their medications, that's going to help me assess whether I want to continue that treatment plan or alter that treatment plan in any way. For patients who have been seen multiple visits, there will be multiple sections here, and I can close that by entering these signs here. So if there's multiple visits that are showing up here, if it's cluttering up the dashboard way too much and you just want to look at one of them, you can close them or open them just by hitting that button there. One extra trick that I want to show for providers is if a patient is on medications for a chronic disease, or they're on medication that were prescribed in the past that you want to continue, you do not need to enter all those new medications in here if they're already in here. If I want to refill that medicine, I just hit refill. Done. So I'm going to say that their hypertension is well controlled. I agree with this plan that was prescribed by the previous provider. So I'm just going to hit refill, and that's going to end up as a new prescription. Now you're certainly going to want to hit save in order for that to go to queue into the pharmacy. But now this creates a medication that needs to be sent in the inbox for the pharmacist. So I hope this video tutorial was helpful. Feel free to rewatch any sections that you might need to. And good luck and have fun on your next trip.